Researchers at the University of Alberta have made horsepox, a deadly infection firmly identified with the similarly savage smallpox. In contrast to smallpox, horsepox doesn't influence people and is just lethal to horses. The researchers made the infection during a 6-month study supported by pharmaceutical organization Tonix. The specialists bought DNA pieces through mail request and organized them to shape the infection. The whole task was not costly. The DNA pieces used to make the infection cost just $100,000. The study caused an issue at the time it was uncovered. Different researchers were worried that legislatures or even psychological militants could utilize the information to make smallpox infection for organic weapons. A smallpox plague could turn out to be fatal for us today. We no longer get inoculated for it since we destroyed the sickness in 1980. The specialists explained that they made the infection since they needed to create improved smallpox antibodies. Tonix later uncovered that it had delivered a smallpox antibody with the Horsepox virus. Other researchers state that the scientists could have separated horsepox from wild pony populaces as opposed to making it without any preparation. Tonix said they would have done recently that on the off chance that they had realized they had common access to the virus. However, lead analyst David Evans said they reproduced the infection in light of the fact that Tonix would have been not able to market the horsepox infection taken from nature. Somewhere in the range of 1347 and 1351, a great many Europeans were harrowed with a strange illness that murdered more than 50 million individuals. Today, we realize this infection is the Black Death, which is brought about by the Yersinia pestis microorganisms. Despite the fact that the Black Death is still near, it isn't as intense as it used to be. Barely any years back, analysts from a few schools, including the University of Tübingen in Germany and McMaster University in Canada, reproduced the savage microscopic organisms from DNA tests extricated from the teeth of a casualty who passed on during the plague. They got just 30 milligrams of the microorganisms from the teeth. Yet that was sufficient to reproduce it. As an outcome, scientists affirmed the first microscopic organism's relationship to the Black Death around today. A few researchers had asserted that the microbes were of various strains, yet they are currently affirmed to be the equivalent. The one we have around today just turned out to be less dangerous after it transformed. Like their partners at the University of Alberta, researchers at the State University of New York have made a fatal fake infection by purchasing DNA pieces by means of mail request. This time, it is polio, and it is as intense as the normal one. Mice presented to the fake polio became ill similarly as they would have whenever presented to regular polio. The research center made polio was questionable among researchers. The specialists who delivered it had taken its code from databases accessible to nearly anyone. Different scientists dread that individuals with ulterior thought processes could build up their own fake polio, which is a lot simpler to make than different hazardous infections like smallpox. Smallpox's hereditary code is 185,000 letters in length, while polio's is only 7,741 letters in length. In spite of the fact that we are as of now at the precarious edge of destroying polio, researchers dread that we will even now should be inoculated against the sickness since it could be reproduced. A couple of years prior, specialists at the Australian National University and the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation (CSIRO) created a destructive transformed strain of Mousepox accidentally. Mousepox is another deadly infection that has a place with a similar family as horsepox and smallpox. The scientists were attempting to create conception prevention for mice at the time that they erroneously made the infection. They embedded a quality that advanced the production of interleukin-4, IL-4, into Mousepox, which they infused into certain mice. The mice were immunized and shouldn't be hurt by the Mousepox, instead of making the mice barren as specialists had expected. The debilitated infection turned deadly and obliterated the safe frameworks of the mice, killing them in 9 days. The new Mousepox was risky to the point that it was impervious to inoculation. Half of the other inoculated mice presented to the transformed Mousepox likewise died. The specialists were so terrified by their innovation that they would not like to distribute their discoveries. They even met with the Australian military to affirm on the off chance that it was sheltered to publish. Scientists dread that human smallpox could likewise transform and get deadlier whenever infused with IL-4. Notwithstanding, they are uncertain in light of the fact that nobody has attempted it yet. We know it won't be long until some research does. Serious intense respiratory disorder (SARS) is a deadly infection. In excess of 700 individuals were slaughtered during a SARS scourge that contaminated 8,000 individuals in 29 nations somewhere in the range of 2002 and 2003. Presently, researchers have made it deadlier. The new freak SARS infection was made by a gathering of analysts drove by Dr. Ralph Baric of the University of North Carolina. They call it SARS 2.0. The specialists built up the infection by adding some protein to the normally happening SARS. SARS 2.0 is insusceptible to antibodies and medicines used to fix the normally happening SARS virus. The group said that the exploration was vital on the grounds that the characteristic SARS infection could transform and get safe to our immunizations. By making a deadlier and transformed infection, we could create more grounded immunizations that will spare us from an increasingly deadly SARS pandemic, that is, if the common SARS ever mutates. However, different researchers are concerned in light of the fact that the SARS 2.0 that should spare us from a savage SARS plague could begin that scourge on the off chance that it ever escapes from the lab.